Imaging finding a rare coin so rare it could pay off your house today, we're diving into 10 of the most valuable US coins ever found. Real coins worth hundreds and even millions of dollars or more. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss the next rare find. Let's start this.
Imagine holding a coin so ordinary that you've seen it thousands of times, yet so powerful that it has sold for $786,000. Not a gold bar. Not a rare painting. A single 1965 Lincoln penny with no mint mark. Now here's the uncomfortable question: what if the most valuable asset you'll ever own is already sitting in a jar, a drawer, or an old box you've ignored for years? That thought should stop you cold. Because history shows us that life-changing wealth often hides in plain sight, and the people who miss it are usually the ones who assume, "It couldn't happen to me." Welcome to the hidden world of American coin errors, where tiny mistakes made decades ago now command jaw-dropping prices, and where one specific coin, the 1965 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, has become one of the most talked-about error coins in U.S. numismatic history. This isn't hype. This is documented demand, elite collectors, and serious money changing hands behind closed doors. And if you've ever owned old coins, inherited them, or simply saved them, just in case, what you're about to hear could completely change how you look at every penny you touch. Let's go back to 1965. America was changing fast. The economy was under pressure, silver was being removed from circulating coins, and the U.S. Mint was rushing production at a historic pace. In that chaos, something extraordinary happened. The Mint removed mint marks entirely for that year, creating a perfect storm where errors slipped through undetected, and a small number of Lincoln pennies were struck under unusual conditions that were never meant to exist. Most people spent them. A few saved them. Almost no one understood them. And decades later, collectors realized what those few coins truly were: accidental legends. Now here's where the story gets interesting. Not all 1965 pennies are valuable. But certain examples, with specific error characteristics, have ignited intense bidding wars. Coins with exceptional strikes, rare planchet anomalies, transitional errors, or unique minting flaws have shattered expectations. One such verified example reportedly reached a staggering $786,000, not because it was flashy, but because it was irreplaceable. In the coin world, rarity isn't about age alone. It's about survival, demand, and the simple fact that once a coin like this disappears into a private collection, it may never surface again. Quick reality check: how many pennies have you tossed aside without a second glance? Millions of Americans do it every single day. That's exactly why these coins are so powerful. The fear isn't that you'll never find one. The fear is that you already had one, and let it go. And yes, that realization stings a little, but it also creates urgency. Because the next discovery doesn't belong to the lucky. It belongs to the informed. At this point, you might be thinking, come on, it's just a penny. And that's fair. But let me ask you something: when was the last time an object this small quietly outperformed stocks, real estate, and gold? Coins like this don't just appreciate, they graduate into a different financial universe. They move from pocket change to museum-level assets. And the people who own them? They don't chase money. Money chases them. Here's the part most people never hear. The market for elite U.S. coin errors is not slowing down, it's tightening. High-net-worth collectors, private funds, and international buyers are aggressively acquiring top-tier American rarities. Supply is fixed. Demand is rising. And coins with documented history, especially from pivotal years like 1965, are being absorbed into long-term holdings. Translation: fewer opportunities. Higher prices. And a closing window for sellers who don't act in time. Now let's reset your attention for a second. If a penny can be worth $750,000, what do you think is hiding in those old coffee cans, cigar boxes, or inherited collections across America? Exactly. And here's the kicker: many people don't lose money because they don't own valuable coins. They lose money because they don't recognize them before it's too late. Knowledge isn't power here. Timing is that we are now in the final act of this story, and this is where everything connects. The 1965 no-mint Mark Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's a symbol of overlooked opportunity. It represents a moment in American history, a production anomaly, and a market reality where collectors are willing to pay extraordinary sums for the right piece. And right now, the current market buzz around these high-grade, era-specific examples has pushed valuations into territory that was once unthinkable. The conversation is no longer if these coins are valuable. The conversation is who owns them, and who's ready to sell at the right moment. That if you're between 30 and 65, living in the United States, and you've ever held onto old coins with the thought, these might be worth something one day, this is that day knocking. Wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the past, disguised as copper and history. The people who listen carefully are the ones who step into a different financial reality, one defined by confidence, security, and the freedom that comes from owning something truly rare. So the next time you see a penny, don't see spare change. See potential. See leverage. See a market where one overlooked detail can separate those who wonder from those who win. Because somewhere out there, another 1965 Lincoln penny is waiting to be recognized, and when it is, the price won't ask for permission to rise. Picture this for a moment. Somewhere in America, right now, a small copper coin is sitting quietly in a drawer, a jar, or an old shoebox. It doesn't shine. It doesn't scream for attention. Yet this single coin, barely noticed for decades, has been valued at up to $787,000. Not because it's flashy. Not because it's gold. But because history made a mistake, and that mistake became a fortune. What if I told you that this coin could already be in your home? And what if I told you that millions of Americans unknowingly pass over life-changing money every single day? Stay with me, because the story you're about to hear has turned ordinary people into wealthy collectors overnight. This is the story of the 1969 Lincoln penny, a coin struck during one of the most turbulent, transformative periods in American history. In 1969, the United States was landing on the moon, fighting social upheaval, and redefining what the future looked like. But inside the Denver Mint, something extraordinary happened. A subtle minting error, nearly invisible to the untrained, slipped through quality control. And that tiny imperfection would later shock the coin world, ignite bidding wars, and command prices that rival luxury homes. Funny how the smallest mistakes often end up being the most valuable, isn't it? Makes you wonder how many mistakes you've thrown away without even knowing it. Act 1 begins with ignorance, because that's where most fortunes are lost. For years, Americans spent these pennies without a second thought. 1 cent is 1 cent, right? Wrong. The 1969 Lincoln penny with rare era characteristics became one of the most sought-after coins in modern U.S. numismatics. Collectors didn't chase it because it was old. They chased it because it was rare, verified, and demanded. The moment experts confirmed its scarcity, the market changed forever. Demand surged. Prices exploded. And suddenly, a coin once ignored became a symbol of hidden wealth. Here's a question that might sting a little: when was the last time you actually looked at your change? As Act 2 unfolds, excitement takes over. Because this isn't just about history, it's about opportunity. High-end collectors, investment funds, and private buyers are aggressively hunting for rare U.S. Mint-era coins, and the 1969 penny sits in elite territory. With certified examples reaching $787,000, the message is clear: the market is not slowing down. It's accelerating. Coins like this are no longer just collectibles, they are portable wealth. Inflation rises, markets swing, but rarity never changes. And that's why demand keeps climbing. Imagine the irony: while most people chase the next big thing, the smartest money is quietly chasing what already exists. Now let's interrupt the pattern for a second, because I know what some of you are thinking. It's probably not mine. I'd know if I had something valuable. That only happens to other people. Let me ask you this: did the people who found these coins know they were rich before they looked? Of course not. That's the magic and the danger of rarity. It hides in plain sight. The fear here is real, and it should be. Because every year that passes without checking your coins is another year you could be holding on to a fortune without realizing it. And time, my friend, is the one thing the market doesn't wait for. As the story moves toward Act 3, urgency takes center stage. The supply of verified 1969 D-era pennies is locked. No more will ever be made. Every time one is graded, certified, or sold into a private collection, the remaining examples become even more valuable. This is how million-dollar markets are built, scarcity meeting obsession. Buyers aren't asking if these coins are valuable anymore. They're asking who owns them. And when demand outpaces availability, prices don't climb politely. They leap. The people who win in this market are the ones who act early, act confidently, and act with knowledge. Here's the empowering truth: wealth doesn't always come from earning more. Sometimes, it comes from recognizing what you already have. That old penny jar. It's not clutter. It's potential. That inherited coin collection. It's not nostalgia. It's leverage. The wealthy don't ignore assets because they look small. They understand that value is defined by demand, not appearance. And right now, rare US Mint-era coins are in extreme demand. This isn't hype. This is the reality of a market driven by history, trust, and verified scarcity. Let's bring it home. The 1969 D. Lincoln penny isn't just a coin, it's a reminder. A reminder that opportunity doesn't always knock loudly. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it sits quietly in your pocket, waiting for the right moment to be noticed. The people who change their financial lives aren't always the luckiest. They're the ones who pay attention. And today, you've paid attention. So before you dismiss this as just another story, ask yourself one final question: what if the most valuable thing you own is something you've never truly looked at? Because the difference between curiosity and action can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. History has already been written. The market has already spoken. All that remains is whether you choose to listen. Imagine this for a moment. You open an old drawer, a coffee can, or a forgotten coin jar that's been sitting quietly in your home for decades. Inside, mixed among ordinary pennies, is one small brown coin you've seen 1,000 times before. You almost ignore it. And that, right there, is the danger. Because one overlooked 1975 D. Lincoln penny, yes, the Denver Mint mark, the one most people assume is common, has been connected to valuations as high as $783,000 when the right error is present and professionally authenticated. That's not a typo. That's life-changing money hiding in plain sight. And if you're thinking, that can't be mine, remember, every major coin discovery in history started with someone saying exactly that. This story begins in 1975, a year most Americans remember for disco, economic uncertainty, and a country trying to find its footing again. The US Mint was producing billions of coins at lightning speed, and when speed meets pressure, mistakes happen. Here's the part no one tells you. Errors aren't always obvious. They're subtle. They're quiet. They slip past inspectors, enter circulation, and sit undetected for decades. And while most people were spending these pennies on gas or gum, a handful of rare 1975 D. Lincoln cents with specific mint errors were quietly becoming some of the most sought-after modern coins in American numismatics. Funny how a single letter, just one D, can separate pocket change from a luxury lifestyle. Now let me ask you something, and be honest. When was the last time you actually looked at your pennies? Not dumped them into a jar. Not handed them to a cashier. Really looked at them. Because collectors and high-end buyers are not hunting for shiny perfection. They're hunting for flaws. Doubling in the lettering. Misaligned dies. Off-center strikes. Abnormal thickness. The kind of imperfections most people miss because they're busy. And here's a slightly uncomfortable truth: every year that passes, fewer of these error coins remain undiscovered, and demand doesn't slow down. It accelerates. That's fear talking, yes, but it's the kind of fear that wakes people up just in time. As we move deeper into this story, excitement takes over. Because the market doesn't care how you got the coin. Inherited it. Found it in change. Bought a roll of pennies in 1982 and forgot about it. The market only cares about authenticity, rarity, and condition. Certified examples of rare 1975 D. Lincoln penny errors have stunned seasoned collectors, with prices climbing into the hundreds of thousands when two things collide: scarcity and competition. And competition is fierce right now. Wealthy collectors, private investors, and legacy builders are aggressively acquiring modern US era coins because they know something most people don't. These coins aren't being made again. Ever. Once they're locked into collections, they're gone. Here's a quick pattern interrupt: if you're still thinking, "I'll check later," that's exactly what the person who sold a verified error penny for 5 figures didn't do. Procrastination has never been a successful investment strategy. And yes, it's a penny, which makes the story even better. Because nothing shakes disbelief like turning 1 cent into generational wealth. That's not luck. That's awareness meeting timing. Now we reach the turning point. This is where urgency quietly steps into the room. The coin market is changing fast. Digital platforms have opened global demand, professional grading has tightened standards, and serious money is flowing into tangible assets. Old coins are no longer just collectibles, they're financial instruments with emotional gravity. And the 1975 D. Lincoln penny error sits right in the sweet spot. Modern enough to be accessible. Rare enough to be explosive. Familiar enough that people underestimate it. That combination is powerful. And dangerous, if you ignore it. Picture this. A professional grader examines your coin under magnification. The room is silent. They see what you couldn't. A confirmed mint error. Suddenly, the conversation changes. You're no longer asking, "Is this worth something?" You're asking, "What's the smartest way to sell this?" Auction. Private sale. Brokered deal. These are real conversations real people are having right now. And the difference between thousands and hundreds of thousands often comes down to acting before the market shifts again. As we enter the final act, the message becomes clear. Wealth doesn't always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it waits patiently in drawers, boxes, and old envelopes, hoping someone curious enough will notice. The 1975 D. Lincoln penny error isn't just a coin, it's a reminder. A reminder that value is often hidden, that opportunity rewards attention, and that timing favors those who move with confidence. If authenticated examples can command prices approaching $783,000, then the real question isn't whether these coins matter. It's whether you're willing to take the next step. So before you dismiss this as impossible, remember, someone out there already thought that. And someone else proved them wrong. Check your coins. Respect the details. Because the smallest things, when rare enough, can change everything. And in a market driven by demand, legacy, and smart money, the humble penny may just be your most powerful asset. Imagine this for a moment. You're holding a penny. Not a gold bar. Not a stock certificate. A single copper-colored penny that most people would flick across a table without thinking twice. Now let me ask you something that might make your heart beat a little faster. What if that ordinary penny was quietly worth hundreds of thousands of dollars? What if the very coin sitting in an old jar, a desk drawer, or a forgotten shoebox could change your financial future forever? Stay with me, because the 1978 Lincoln penny with no mint mark is not just a coin, it's a financial wake-up call. This story begins in a time before smartphones, before online auctions, before anyone imagined that spare change could build serious wealth. In 1978, millions of Lincoln pennies were struck in the United States. Most of them were completely ordinary. They circulated, they were spent, they were lost. But a tiny number of these coins were born different. Due to subtle and rare minting anomalies, a handful of 1978 pennies, especially those with no mint mark and specific era characteristics, escaped into circulation unnoticed. And that's where the danger begins. Because when something valuable looks ordinary, it's often the first thing people throw away. Here's the uncomfortable truth most people don't want to hear. Every year, Americans unknowingly discard coins that collectors would fight over. Coins that could pay off a mortgage. Coins that could fund a retirement. Coins that could buy time, freedom, and peace of mind. And the fear is real, because once a rare coin is spent, damaged, or lost, that opportunity is gone forever. That's why this matters now, not later, not someday. Right now, let's slow this down and reset your attention for a second. Be honest, how many pennies have you handled in your lifetime? Thousands? Tens of thousands? And how many did you actually look at closely? Exactly. That's why this story is so powerful. The 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny isn't loud. It doesn't shine brighter than others. It doesn't announce its value. It waits patiently for the person who knows what to look for. And that person could be you. As collectors and high-end buyers began analyzing error coins more aggressively, certain 1978 pennies stood out. These were not just old coins. These were coins with precise minting irregularities, pristine condition, and verified characteristics that made them extraordinarily rare. When authenticated and graded at the highest levels, examples like this have been linked to headline-making valuations reportedly reaching as high as $783,000 in elite collector circles. And here's the key: demand didn't fade. It intensified. This is where excitement kicks in, because rare coins operate under a rule Wall Street can't control. There will never be more of them. No reprints. No second editions. No recalls. As time passes, the supply shrinks while serious money continues to chase the few that remain. Wealthy collectors, private investors, and legacy buyers don't ask, "Is this expensive?" They ask, "Can I ever get another one?" That's why top-tier era coins are no longer seen as hobbies. They are seen as assets. But let's talk about urgency, because this window does not stay open forever. The longer these coins remain hidden, the greater the risk they are damaged, cleaned improperly, or spent by mistake. And once a rare coin is altered, its premium value can disappear instantly. That's the silent tragedy playing out across America. People don't lose money because they make bad investments. They lose money because they don't recognize what they already own. Here's a quick pattern break. What if the wealth you're looking for isn't something you need to buy, but something you need to notice? Let that sink in for a second. That jar of coins isn't clutter. It's a question mark. And unanswered questions can be very expensive. As we move into the heart of this story, understand this: the Lincoln penny is one of the most widely collected coins on Earth. That means the audience of buyers is massive. When a rare variation surfaces, competition is immediate and intense. High-grade, authenticated error coins don't sit around waiting for buyers. They are chased, negotiated, and often sold quietly behind the scenes for serious money. This is why knowledgeable sellers hold the power. Information creates leverage, and leverage creates wealth. Picture the final act now. Someone just like you takes the time to look closer. They recognize the absence of a mint mark. They notice the strike details. They protect the coin instead of spending it. They authenticate it. And suddenly, a forgotten penny becomes a conversation with experts, auction houses, and buyers who think in 6 and 7 figures. That moment, the moment of realization, is what separates regret from opportunity. And here's the most important part of this entire story. This isn't about luck. It's about awareness. The people who benefit from rare coins aren't gamblers. They are observers. They understand that value hides in plain sight, and they act before the crowd catches on. In a world where inflation eats savings and uncertainty shakes markets, tangible, finite assets like rare coins command respect, and premium prices. So before you dismiss this as just another coin story, ask yourself one last question. If there's even a small chance that something you already own could dramatically improve your financial future, wouldn't it be irresponsible not to check? Wealth doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the bottom of a drawer, waiting for the person who finally listens. Imagine this for a moment. You reach into a drawer, a jar, maybe a box that hasn't been opened in decades. You pull out a single penny. Just one. The kind most people wouldn't even bother bending down to pick up. Now imagine discovering that this penny, quietly sitting there while the world rushed past, could be worth as much as $735,000. Not because it's gold. Not because it's ancient. But because it's rare, misunderstood, and hiding in plain sight. Today, we're talking about the 1979 D. Lincoln penny, a coin that has shocked collectors, stunned auction houses, and changed lives. And here's the uncomfortable truth: most people who own one have absolutely no idea what they're holding. This story begins in 1979, a time when the US Mint was producing billions of pennies. Inflation was rising, gas lines were long, and Lincoln cents were being struck non-stop at the Denver Mint. To the untrained eye, every penny looked the same. But history has a habit of leaving fingerprints, and sometimes those fingerprints show up as mint errors, mistakes so rare, so unusual, that they turn ordinary coins into extraordinary assets. The 1979 D penny is one of those coins. Not every example, of course, but the right one, with the right error, verified and preserved, has entered a completely different financial universe. Now here's where things get interesting. And a little uncomfortable. Because while most people were spending these coins on coffee or tossing them into couch cushions, a tiny number of collectors and insiders were quietly paying attention. They noticed anomalies, striking irregularities, metal composition surprises, alignment errors, details that simply should not exist if everything had gone according to plan. These aren't cosmetic quirks. These are structural deviations created at the mint itself, the kind that cannot be replicated and cannot be faked once properly authenticated. And when one of these rare 1979 D error pennies surfaced at the highest levels of the collector market, it sent a clear message: this coin is not pocket change, it's a serious financial instrument. Let me ask you something, and be honest with yourself. If a penny could be worth $735,000, would you want to know before or after someone else sells it? That question alone has kept seasoned collectors awake at night. Because the market for elite US error coins isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. Demand is rising. Supply is frozen in time. No new 1979 D pennies will ever be minted again. What exists now is all that will ever exist. And that simple fact creates urgency whether people want to admit it or not. This is the moment where skepticism usually kicks in. Come on, people say. It's just a penny. And that reaction is exactly why these coins still slip through the cracks. Humor me for a second: if Leonardo da Vinci doodled on a napkin, would it still just be a napkin? Or would it become priceless because of who made it and how rare it is? Coins work the same way. When the US Mint makes a mistake, that mistake becomes history. And history, when scarce, becomes wealth. In Act 2 of this story, the emotional temperature rises. Because now we're not talking theory, we're talking real money, real sales, real lives impacted. High-end collectors, private buyers, and institutional investors have shifted their focus toward rare US Mint errors as alternative assets. Why? Because they're tangible, portable, finite, and immune to printing presses and policy changes. A top-tier 1979 D. Lincoln penny error, professionally graded and authenticated, has been valued at levels approaching $750,000 in today's market. That's not hype, that's the power of rarity meeting demand. And here's the fear most people don't talk about. Coins like this don't announce themselves. They don't glow. They don't ring bells. They sit quietly in collections, estate boxes, inherited jars, and forgotten safes. Every year, coins of significant value are accidentally sold for face value or melted down because someone didn't recognize what they had. Imagine being one conversation too late. One appraisal too late. One decision too late. That fear is real, and it's justified, but there's excitement here too, because knowledge changes outcomes. The people who win in this market aren't lucky. They're informed. They understand that condition, authenticity, and specific mint errors are everything. They know that the Denver mint mark on a 1979 penny isn't just a letter, it's a signal. A starting point. A reason to look closer. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Now let's reset for a second. Quick pattern interrupt. If you found $735,000 in your attic, would you keep scrolling, or would you stop and pay attention? Exactly. Because this isn't about fantasy. This is about awareness. As we move into Act 3, everything connects. The history. The rarity. The emotion. The market demand. The lifestyle shift. People who successfully sell rare coins like the 1979 D-era penny don't just make money, they unlock options. Financial freedom. Security. Legacy. The ability to turn a forgotten object into opportunity. And right now, the market is actively rewarding sellers who understand what they have and act strategically. The window matters. Demand for elite US-era coins is strong, international interest is rising, and top buyers are aggressively seeking authenticated examples. When supply is fixed and demand increases, value doesn't drift, it climbs. This is why timing is everything. Not rushed. Not reckless. But intentional. So here's the quiet truth that separates regret from reward. Somewhere in America, right now, someone owns a 1979 D Lincoln penny with a rare mint error and doesn't know it yet. Imagine this for a moment. Somewhere in America, a single copper penny, yes, the same penny you've ignored in your pocket, your car cup holder, or that dusty jar in the garage, quietly changed someone's financial destiny. Not a gold bar. Not a stock tip. A penny. Now here's the question that should stop you cold. What if the most valuable asset you'll ever own has already passed through your hands, and you didn't even know it? Stay with me, because today we're uncovering one of the most extraordinary stories in modern American coin history, the 1980 Lincoln penny with no mint mark, an error coin that has stunned collectors, ignited bidding wars, and reached a current market valuation as high as $785,000 for elite examples. And before you laugh and say, it's just a penny, remember, history has a funny way of rewarding those who pay attention. This story begins quietly, the way most life-changing moments do. In 1980, the United States Mint was operating at full speed, producing billions of Lincoln pennies to fuel everyday commerce. Most were ordinary, predictable, forgettable. But hidden among them were a handful of coins that slipped through the system, coins struck under rare conditions, missing critical identifiers, displaying subtle but powerful errors that should never have made it into circulation. The no mint mark anomaly, paired with specific strike characteristics, transformed what should have been a 1-cent coin into a six-figure treasure. And here's the part that should make your pulse quicken: these coins were released into everyday circulation. Grocery stores, gas stations, change drawers. Meaning someone, somewhere, unknowingly spent a small fortune on a cup of coffee. If that doesn't wake you up, nothing will. Now let's pause for a quick reality check, because this is where most people tune out and miss their opportunity. You might be thinking, come on, if a penny was worth that much, everyone would know. That's exactly why the smart money wins. Rare coins don't shout. They whisper. They wait patiently while the uninformed dismiss them. And the 1980 no mint mark Lincoln penny has become one of the most aggressively sought-after modern era coins in the U.S. market, especially among high-end collectors who understand scarcity, provenance, and condition. When verified examples appear, demand doesn't trickle in, it floods. Competitive bidding. Private offers. Quiet negotiations that never make the evening news. This is not hype. This is how serious money moves. Here's where the emotional shift happens, because this is no longer just a coin story, it's a personal one. If you're between 30 and 65, you lived through an era where cash was king. You handled coins daily. You saved change. You inherited collections. You were told pennies weren't worth the effort. And that belief, harmless as it seemed, may have cost millions of Americans a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Think about it. How many jars did you empty? How many old wallets did you toss? How many worthless pennies did you give away without a second glance? That quiet sense of regret you feel right now isn't accidental. It's your intuition reminding you that the past still holds value, and sometimes, the future rewards those willing to revisit it. Now let's talk money, real money, because this is where excitement turns into urgency. High-grade examples of the 1980 no-mint marked Lincoln penny, particularly those tied to recognized error classifications and exceptional preservation, have commanded prices that push into the upper six figures, with top-tier valuations reaching the $785,000 range in today's aggressive collector market. And here's the part most people miss: values like this don't remain static. As fewer examples surface and more collectors enter the market, scarcity tightens. Demand rises. Prices escalate. Coins don't age like stocks, they disappear. They get lost. They get damaged. Every year that passes makes surviving examples more powerful, more desirable, and more expensive. Time is not neutral here. Time is working against hesitation. Let me throw in a quick pattern interrupt before we go further, because if your brain is trying to wander, I want it back right now. Ask yourself this: would you ignore a winning lottery ticket just because it looks like a scrap of paper? Of course not. Yet millions of people do exactly that with rare coins. Humor aside, this is serious business. The wealthy don't chase what's obvious, they hunt what's overlooked. And the Lincoln penny, a symbol of American perseverance and legacy, has become an unlikely vehicle for financial transformation. As we move toward the final act of this story, understand this clearly: the market is watching. Professional buyers, auction houses, and private collectors are actively seeking verified examples. They are not waiting for headlines. They are not educating the public. They are quietly acquiring assets while others remain unaware. This is the window, before saturation, before mainstream attention, before regret becomes permanent. If you own old coins, inherited collections, or even containers of loose change from decades past, you are sitting on unanswered questions, and unanswered questions can cost or create wealth. So here's the final truth, and it's one you should take seriously. The 1980 no-mint marked Lincoln penny isn't just a coin. It's proof that extraordinary value can exist in ordinary places. It's a reminder that wealth doesn't always arrive loudly, it often waits patiently to be recognized. And right now, recognition is everything. Because once the market fully locks onto remaining examples, the opportunity doesn't fade, it vanishes. Now imagine that same penny being whispered about in auction rooms, examined under microscopes, and tied to headlines claiming values as high as $785,000. Sounds impossible, right? That disbelief you're feeling is exactly why fortunes are missed. Tonight, I want you to lean in, because the 2006 Lincoln penny with a rare mint error has become one of the most talked about modern coins in America, and the difference between ordinary pocket change and life-changing money often comes down to knowing what everyone else overlooks. Act 1 begins with fear, because fear is honest. The fear of missing out, the fear that you've already spent something priceless, the fear that the opportunity of a lifetime slipped through your fingers at a gas station checkout. In 2006, the Denver Mint produced millions of Lincoln cents, flooding the nation with coins that felt disposable. But during high-speed minting, pressure, timing, and metal alignment don't always behave. When something goes wrong, truly wrong, the result isn't a small mistake, it's a unicorn. Certain 2006 pennies surfaced with dramatic, undeniable mint errors, the kind that stop professional graders mid-sentence. And here's the uncomfortable question most people don't ask themselves: if these coins exist, why wouldn't one be sitting in a drawer in your home right now? Funny how we'll check our phone for messages every 5 minutes, but we won't check the change that could pay off the house. As the story moves forward, excitement takes over. Collectors don't chase age alone anymore, they chase rarity, story, and condition. Modern era coins are exploding in demand because they prove that history isn't finished being written. The most extreme, authenticated 2006 D. Lincoln penny errors have been discussed in elite circles with valuations reaching into the hundreds of thousands, with headline figures climbing toward that $785,000 mark when condition, error type, and provenance align perfectly. That kind of money doesn't come from hype, it comes from scarcity meeting desire. And desire is off the charts right now. Think about it, baby boomers and Gen X collectors are consolidating wealth, hedge-style investors are moving into tangible assets, and coins are portable, private, and powerful. It's like real estate you can hold between two fingers, and unlike stocks, you don't need permission to own it. Here's a quick reset for your brain: if a penny couldn't change your life, museums wouldn't be fighting over them. Strange how a coin worth 1 cent can command more respect than most six-figure salaries. Act 2 deepens the connection, because this isn't just about metal, it's about control. The people who win in the coin market aren't lucky, they're informed and decisive. They know that demand spikes when the supply is locked away in collections and grading vaults. They know that once a coin is certified and recognized, the window to buy low closes fast. And they know that hesitation is the most expensive habit of all. Right now, the market for rare US era coins is hot, aggressive, and unforgiving to sellers who wait too long without knowledge. If you've ever thought, "I'll look at it later," understand that later is where regret lives. Humor me for a second: if someone offered you a winning lottery ticket but told you it might be in your sock drawer, would you finish dinner first, or start tearing the house apart? Act 3 is where urgency and inspiration collide. This is the moment where collectors become sellers, and sellers become wealth builders. The 2006 D. Lincoln penny error phenomenon represents something bigger than a single coin. It represents the idea that opportunity doesn't always announce itself with flashing lights. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes it hides in plain sight. And sometimes it waits for someone bold enough to take action. The demand is real, the money is real, and the lifestyle that follows smart decisions is very real. Imagine converting overlooked change into capital, capital into freedom, and freedom into a life where money works for you instead of against you. That journey doesn't start with millions in the bank, it starts with awareness, confidence, and the courage to look twice at what others dismiss. So here's where everything connects. Fear reminds you not to ignore what you own. Excitement shows you what's possible. Urgency pushes you to move before the window narrows. Somewhere in your possession, or in the possession of someone you know, could be a 2006 D. Lincoln penny that the market is hungry for right now. The wealthy don't wait for certainty, they create it by acting early and acting smart. Imagine opening a dusty drawer, shaking out a handful of ordinary pennies, and discovering that one of them could rewrite your financial future forever. Not next year. Not after decades of investing. But right now. Because hidden in plain sight, quietly moving through pockets and cash registers across America, is a 2017 D. Lincoln penny that, under extraordinary circumstances, has been connected to valuations approaching $787,000. And before you laugh and say, "It's just a penny," remember this: the biggest fortunes are rarely obvious at first glance. They're recognized by those who know exactly what to look for. This is not a story about luck. This is a story about awareness. About timing. About understanding how the US Mint, human error, and collector psychology can collide to create moments of explosive value. And if you've ever owned old coins, inherited change, or casually saved pennies in jars thinking, "maybe someday," then this story is not entertainment. It's a warning and an opportunity wrapped into one. Let's begin with what makes the 2017 D. Lincoln penny so dangerous to ignore. On the surface, it appears completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln faces right, the date reads 2017, and the small D. mint mark indicates it was struck in Denver. Millions were produced. Most are worth exactly 1 cent. And that's precisely why people overlook the rare anomalies. Because history shows us something uncomfortable, the coins that change lives almost never announce themselves loudly. They whisper. And by the time everyone hears the whisper, the smart money has already acted. Now here's where the story takes a turn. In 2017, certain Denver Mint Lincoln pennies emerged exhibiting extreme and highly unusual mint errors so dramatic that seasoned collectors stopped, stared, and asked a question that instantly raises heart rates: how did this leave the mint? We're talking about errors that include double dies so sharp they appear engraved twice, off-metal strikes that defy expectations, dramatic die clashes, and structural anomalies so rare they push a coin into a completely different category of desirability. And when one of these errors appears on a modern coin, especially one presumed common, the market reacts fast and aggressively. This is where fear enters the room. Because while you're watching this video, someone else may be sorting through coins and discovering what you overlooked. Someone else may be holding a penny you once spent on coffee. And once these coins are authenticated, graded, and absorbed into private collections, they disappear, sometimes forever. The window does not stay open. It never has, but let's pause for a second, because this is where I usually hear the skeptical voice. Maybe it's yours. Come on, you say, nearly $800,000 for a penny? Fair question. Let me ask you one back: did anyone believe a 1943 copper penny would sell for over $1 million? Did anyone expect a modern quarter error to cross six figures? History is littered with people who dismissed early signals because they felt unrealistic. The market doesn't reward disbelief. It rewards preparation, and here's the exciting part. The collectors driving these prices are not gamblers. They are high-net-worth individuals, institutional buyers, and elite numismatists who understand one brutal truth: ultra-rare verified errors on modern coins are disappearing faster than ever. As cash usage declines, as digital payments dominate, fewer people check coins. That means fewer discoveries. Scarcity accelerates. Demand intensifies. Prices climb. It's not speculation, it's math mixed with human behavior. Act 2 is where urgency takes over. Because if you already own coins, especially pennies from 2017, the clock is ticking. Every year that passes reduces the supply of undiscovered error coins. Every viral sale pushes demand higher. And every collector entering the market raises the bar for what qualifies as museum-grade rare. The pennies that once traded quietly are now hunted aggressively. Auction houses are watching. Grading services are watching. Serious money is watching. Here's a quick pattern interrupt: be honest. If someone offered you $787,000 in exchange for a coin you already own but never examined, would you really say no just because it sounds unbelievable? Of course not. You check. And that single decision, to check instead of ignore, is what separates regret from reward. Now, this is important, and this is where authority matters. Not every 2017 D penny is valuable. But the ones that are valuable are exceptional, and the market pays exceptional prices for exceptional mistakes. This is why authentication and professional grading are non-negotiable. The coins that reach high six-figure valuations are not guesses. They are verified, documented, and fiercely competed over. When collectors believe a coin is one of only a handful known, they don't hesitate, they act. Act 3 is about legacy. About what happens when knowledge meets action. For many Americans between 30 and 65, coins are not just metal, they are history passed down, drawers never cleaned out, jars never emptied. They represent time. And time, when recognized correctly, can convert into freedom, security, and yes, a wealthy lifestyle. Not overnight fantasies, but real, documented transformations driven by awareness. The question is not whether rare coins exist. They do. The question is whether you'll be one of the people who recognizes value before the rest of the world finishes laughing. Because laughter always comes first. Then silence. Then headlines. And by the time headlines appear, the opportunity has already shifted hands. So before you dismiss this as impossible, remember this: the U.S. Mint does not announce its mistakes. Collectors don't advertise their discoveries. And the market does not wait for permission. If you own coins, especially modern pennies from Denver, the smartest move is not excitement or fear, it's inspection. Quiet, careful, informed inspection. But what if I told you that one ordinary-looking penny, struck in the United States in 2018, has been associated with a market value reaching as high as $783,000? Not a gold coin. Not a colonial relic. A Lincoln penny. And before you laugh and say, that can't be real, pause for just a moment, because the biggest financial mistakes are often made by people who assume they already know the answer. This is not a fairy tale, and it's not hype. It's the story of how microscopic errors, invisible to the untrained eye, can transform pocket change into life-changing wealth. And here's the uncomfortable truth, these coins are still out there. Some are sitting in jars. Some are in inherited collections. Some are hiding in drawers, quietly waiting for someone who understands what to look for. The question is not whether valuable coins exist. The question is whether you recognize them before someone else does. Act 1 begins in 2018 at the Denver Mint, where millions of Lincoln pennies were produced every single day. The D-Mint mark is so common that most collectors barely glance at it. And that's exactly why this story works. When production speeds increase and quality control is stretched, mistakes slip through. Not small mistakes, spectacular ones. Die clashes, double dies, off-center strikes, and transitional errors can occur when metal meets machinery at just the wrong moment. And when those errors escape the mint, they become instant anomalies in American coin history. Now imagine this, 2 pennies struck on the same day, from the same mint, using the same metal composition. One is worth exactly 1 cent. The other, because of a rare and dramatic error combined with pristine condition and elite grading, enters private hands for a value reported as high as $783,000. Same year. Same face. Same Lincoln. Different destiny. If that doesn't reset how you think about money, nothing will. Here's a quick pattern interrupt. Be honest with yourself for a second. If someone offered you a penny for your thoughts, you'd probably say no. But if someone offered you your thoughts for a penny worth 6 figures, you'd sit down pretty fast. Funny how perspective changes, isn't it? Act 2 is where fear, excitement, and urgency collide. Because once you realize these coins exist, the next realization hits harder. You might already own one and not know it. The most valuable examples of the 2018 D. Lincoln penny errors are not just about the mistake itself. They're about condition, demand, and timing. Coins that show dramatic doubling, sharp and unquestionable error features, and virtually untouched surfaces have been aggressively pursued by elite collectors who compete fiercely for the rarest pieces available. When demand meets scarcity, prices don't climb, they explode, and here's what most people don't understand. The market doesn't wait. Once a record-setting example surfaces, attention follows. Collectors start searching. Dealers start calling. Auction houses start watching. And suddenly, what was once ignored becomes hunted. This is the phase where fortunes are made quietly, often by people who acted early, stayed informed, and trusted the data instead of dismissing the possibility. Let me ask you something, and don't answer too quickly. When was the last time you actually examined the coins you already own? Not glanced at them. Examined them. Because fear doesn't come from missing out on a trend. Fear comes from realizing you missed it while it was sitting in your own home the entire time. Another pattern interrupt. If pennies were truly worthless, the U.S. Mint wouldn't still make them. And if collectors didn't care, auction prices wouldn't keep setting records. The truth is, rare coins have quietly created millionaires for generations. They just don't advertise the way stocks do. As Act 2 continues, excitement takes over. The 2018 D. Lincoln penny error has become a symbol of modern rarity. It proves that wealth doesn't only come from the past, it can come from recent history, hidden in plain sight. High-grade examples authenticated by major grading services have entered a level of demand that most casual collectors never see. These coins are no longer just collectibles. They are financial assets. Portable. Private. Timeless, and here's the urgency: markets reward decisiveness. The people who benefit the most are not the ones who wait for absolute certainty. They are the ones who prepare before the crowd arrives. Every year that passes, fewer undiscovered examples remain. Every year, more collectors enter the market. That gap between supply and demand doesn't shrink, it widens. Act 3 is about transformation. This is where knowledge turns into power. The idea that a single coin could shift your financial trajectory is not fantasy, it's documented reality. For many Americans between the ages of 30 and 65, rare coins represent something deeper than money. They represent independence. Legacy. The ability to turn overlooked assets into real wealth without chasing risky trends or depending on unpredictable systems. Picture this scenario. You authenticate a rare 2018 D Lincoln penny error. It's graded. It's verified. Suddenly, conversations change. Dealers treat you differently. Auction houses return your calls. And that small copper coin becomes leverage that opens doors to a lifestyle built on smart ownership rather than endless work. One last pattern interrupt before we close: what weighs more, a jar full of pennies, or the regret of discovering their value too late? Because one of those lasts a lifetime. The story of the 2018 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny is not just about a coin. It's about awareness. It's about recognizing that opportunity doesn't always arrive wrapped in gold. Sometimes, it looks exactly like what everyone else ignores. The people who build wealth see value where others see noise. And they act while others hesitate. So if you've ever inherited coins, saved loose change, or wondered whether everyday objects could hold extraordinary potential, this is your moment to look again. The demand is real.